Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Richmond, Virginia, it's time for Richmond Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Richmond Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. But before we get started, it's important to recognize our sponsor, SMN Square, providing building blocks to success and sustainability. Today on Richmond Business Radio, we have Dale Fickett with Open Trellis. Welcome, Dale.
Hello, Lee. How are you today?
I am doing well. I'm excited to learn what you're up to. Tell us a little bit about Open Trellis.
Sure. Well, Open Trellis is an extension of all of the work that we've been doing around Richmond to help more people become business owners. I think a natural starting point in the conversation, Lee, is that, I come into this world of entrepreneurship from a very unique perspective. I think, generally speaking, it's a part of my faith journey. So I believe there's no better way for us to go through life than in love and service. And so I happen to be someone that has an academic and professional background in economics, finance, and business strategy. And so I've been using that to try to help people who most need help to get a business up and running.
Now, how did that come to you to connect kind of this mission and service to actual entrepreneurship and business? Because, some folks think business is a bad word, that they think business owners or entrepreneurs are greedy exploiters. I haven't seen it that way myself. I've interviewed tens of thousands of business leaders, and I find them to be very generous and community-serving folks. To the most part, there's always exceptions to the rule, but how did you kind of gravitate towards serving the business folks?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to 2007. I was going through what I would describe as a religious conversion. I happen to be Christian. I'm in the Roman Catholic denomination. I was looking at various ways for me to participate more fully with my faith. And I was just looking at various aspects of my life. I went through what I would describe as a very powerful spiritual experience. And it just became very clear to me that, all of these different experiences that I've had, whether it's Big Four consulting, I worked in the strategy practice over in Europe. I also have lectured and done research with places like Trinity College over in Dublin. I've traveled internationally to many countries. I've been able to and honored to lecture in the Ivy League all around entrepreneurship. And so I started looking at that and started thinking about the various experiences that I had had at that point in my life. And so I said, well, okay, if these are the things that I know, economics, finance, business strategy, how can I use that to really live this out, right? To really live out a call to service, and particularly a service for the people who most need help. And so as I began looking at that, Lee, I started saying to myself, well, gee, I'm not really a teacher. I'm not really a doctor. I'm not a priest or a pastor. What can I do that would be helpful? And so as I looked at that, I said, boy, you know what? I've had a very blessed experience in terms of my schooling as well as the early career stuff. And so I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to work as best I can to help people become business owners. And the more I delved into that area, the more that I learned there's a great deal of work that's been done in that area, different branches of economics, specifically around developmental economics, micro enterprise development. There's a whole range of different things, social enterprise. We could go on and on for a long time talking about the ways that people have looked at this. And so as I began looking into it more and more, I started seeing that there was a pathway for me to really make an impact in people's lives and to help them. And so that was really the genesis of our work here in Richmond.
And then I believe you found that when people choose a path of entrepreneurship and they take that personal accountability for the growth of their own finances, in essence, and serving the community by having a business in the community, that's a great lever for them to kind of maybe escape poverty, to improve their financial situation and really make a difference.
Oh, that's definitely right, Lee. I couldn't agree more. I mean, if we're to look at different people and we say, well, what would be most helpful for them, and believe me, I'm well aware that there are lots of different ways that we could undertake workforce development, right? There's lots of job retraining programs. We could do a lot of work in educational undertakings. We could do lots of different things to help people get a new position or to move ahead in their current career. And I'm certainly not opposed to any of that. But I work in a very specific slice of all of this, which is really around exactly what you were talking about, which is working in some, fairly difficult neighborhoods, some folks who have, been up against some serious challenges in their lives. And so they're raising their hand. They're coming to us and saying, hey, you know what? I want to have a good livelihood. I want to support myself and my family. I want to build this business. And so we exist essentially to help them do that.
And that's where the rubber hits the road, right? This is where
right.
You're giving them the tools and the resources in order to kind of maybe reframe that dream and give them the kind of the structure to help make it come true, and the systems that are going to help them keep it and make it sustainable.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Lee. And if we were to look across the whole range of different ways that we could assist someone in building a business, I sort of point to 3 C's. I think the first part is about content. We can think of that as insight, information, intelligence, whatever we want to call it. But it's really about getting the right information to actually put that plan or that idea into practice, right? Because there's a lot of different people have a lot of different ideas, but in our teach a man to fish type of ministry here, we're really working with people who say, I have this idea and I'm willing to put the time, effort, and energy into it, and actually even a little bit of money on the table too to make this happen. So we're working with people who are very motivated. The second C is really about connection. So we're very aware of and have been working in a lot of very intentional ways to help folks get connected into a broader professional network. So as we both know, when we're in the world of business, a lot of it comes down to being connected. And for people that we assist, many of the entrepreneurs that we work with, they might have a great support system or a moderate support system in their family, their community, their church, and so forth. But what we're looking to do is essentially to broaden that out so that they have a better professional network. And then the third C is around capital. And so we know that capital is the fuel that makes businesses grow and run. And so we're actively involved in all 3 of those areas to really help folks establish a business and then for it to grow for the long term, as you said, in a sustainable way.
Now, is your work kind of like a startup incubator for these? I don't know if they're all micro, but micro to small to mid-sized businesses?
Yeah, so a couple of things in there that you mentioned, Lee. So I think the first thing is that we're not an incubator in terms of operating a facility. So what we do is run a few different programs. We have a core accelerator program, which people apply to online. They come into the website, they go through the page that's focused there on learning, and they essentially submit an application and say, hey, you know what? I want to take this idea and I want to launch this business. I want to really plan this out the right way, and I want to get started selling. And that point cannot be overemphasized. Selling is incredibly important. The other point that I wanted to touch on was that in terms of connectivity, the other program that we operate is called 1 Million Cups here in Richmond. But we have 1 million cups nationally. There's 150 communities that have a 1 million cups. There's 12,000 entrepreneurs monthly who are impacted by and who participate within 1 million cups. It's a great program. And then the third area is a series of different alumni support services that can be thought of as a buffet of different things which graduates of our accelerator program can avail of as it makes sense for them in terms of their business development.
Now, are the folks that are going through these programs, are they kind of building the next Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok platform? Are they having lifestyle businesses that they just want to put on solid ground and that they may scale or may turn into a franchise, but it may just be for them and maybe have a few locations around them? Like, what is kind of the dream that these folks are aiming for?
Sure. So I think the starting point there is for us to segment out high tech, high growth from Main Street business. So if we think about the sort of folks, as you mentioned, TikTok, Facebook, we could mention a Bitcoin and so forth, those types of businesses, believe it or not, I mean, we read about a lot of them in the media, but they're also extremely risky and particularly early on. And so it's usually, we estimate between 1% to 2% of new businesses that are formed will ever receive outside equity investment. And when you talk with angel investors as well as venture capitalists, we know that in those portfolios, they think it's a huge win if 2 out of 10 survive, right? So it's a really risky game to play. So we're not really in that space. What we do is work with folks who come to the table and they say, hey, Dale, I have this idea. This is what I'm thinking of doing. And what we need to see, number one, is that they're very clear on that idea, their vision. Number two, we need to understand that that idea is pretty feasible. So someone could be coming to us saying, I want to start a bakery or a cafe. What we're really looking to do is say, well, you know what, maybe a food truck might be more achievable in the short term. In the longer term, having that bakery or cafe could be helpful and could be achievable. And then the third thing that we're looking for as people come into our program is that we're looking for them to be in a set of life circumstances where they can really dedicate about 15 to 20 hours a week over a 12-week period to really focus in on their business model so that we can sketch that out, understand, so that they themselves can understand exactly what they're talking about starting, and so that they're doing the sort of research and customer discovery that's necessary to get sales initiated.
So you're kind of borrowing some of the startup methodology and then kind of making it available for folks who don't necessarily have that, like you said, the high-tech startup company, but it's similar tools that help them kind of vet their idea and to see if it has legs or not.
Right. That's definitely right. So as folks are coming in, I was just describing sort of the entry stakes to get started in our accelerator. Once people get started, what we're really looking for is that they're going through, number one, and they're talking with customers because they need that feedback initially. And we can't get that early enough, right? So we need to get that customer feedback. We're talking about people who are in markets where they're pretty well established, mature markets where there's pretty low barrier to entry. So we're talking about construction and trade-based businesses. We could think of the food type of businesses I mentioned. We also do work with freelancers, independent consultants, and creatives. And then the last part is more personal services. And so that could be home health care, barbershops and beauty parlors and so forth. People who have a low barrier to entry where getting started, as I said, is achievable for them. And what we found is that a lot of the support systems that are in place are not necessarily geared for those types of business owners. So if we look at a lot of the economic development funding goes into things like the commercialization of university intellectual property, right? The results of what faculty and students are developing on campus, or large corporates that are thinking about acquiring a business. But what we're doing is we're looking more at Main Street and saying, okay, if we put these folks first, what would that program look like? And that's what we've developed, which is taking the best of those methodologies and applying it directly in the small business space. So here I would point to lean canvas, design thinking, using things like, some pretty conventional financial analysis, but things which are probably not emphasized enough in some small business development, things like break-even analysis, weighted average cost of capital, and so forth. And so as we look at pulling together these sort of teaching and tools, then we're able to really help folks establish a business, get the sales started, and to have a firm foundation on which they're building that business.
And the benefit of targeting that group is, number one, it's hard to automate the barber. It's hard to automate the company that requires boots on the ground and a human being doing human being things. Number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, it doesn't matter. These people don't need PhDs in poli-sci or computer programming in order to do their work. So it's opening up to a lot more folks. This becomes a dream that can come true.
Right. That's definitely right, Lee. And, and so, for example, we currently have a student. He happens to be an immigrant refugee from Myanmar. He has a couple of siblings, actually 2 sisters and a brother who are still in Myanmar. We've had folks from, literally, from all around the world who are here in the region that are saying, hey, you know what? I want to start this restaurant. I want to start this dog treat company. I want to start this type of company. And so what we found is that folks that are coming to us with a realistic ambition, what they're really looking for is the support that they need to flush that out so that it can be scaled back to the point where it's feasible for them to get it started. Now, I should say that automation, I'm certainly not opposed to automation. I think there's a lot of great innovations that have come up and been very helpful. But as you pointed out, Lee, there's a lot of businesses that cannot be replicated or, that have not been able to be automated in a way where robotics and other things are going to make a tremendous amount of difference. And so what we've seen is as we trace through those trends that are affecting the economy, and there's plenty of them, that as we look at these sorts of entrepreneurs, we can see that there are specific skill sets that they need, which we can help them develop. And essentially, that's what this is about. It's not really about Dale or any of our mentors doing it for them. It's really about them doing it and us providing all of the different tools that they need to build the business they want.
Right, and it accelerates their learning. It kind of flattens their learning curve. It prevents them from making or maybe even taking risks that were long shots and giving them the understanding that you could go this way, that might be more risky, or go this way, that this seems, you're hedging in 3 different areas, so this will be safer, and then you have a higher probability of success. Most people don't know all of that. And if you can teach them that, then they're going to have a pretty good chance of being successful. And it may not be something that turns into the $1 billion unicorn, but it could be something that makes them a good living. It takes their family out of poverty. It kind of helps them role model a successful business for their children, and it impacts the community. And if more of that was happening, you would have a tremendous impact in your community and communities around the country.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Lee. I couldn't have said it better. And when I think of the benefits of this sort of programming, at a big picture level, number one, small business is incredibly important in terms of jobs, right? The vast majority of businesses in the United States are small businesses. Research has shown that firms less than 5 years old are the ones who are net job creators. Older firms typically are the ones who are driving out more efficiency in their business model and end up either laying off people or reducing the size of their workforce. So jobs is incredibly important. The second thing is that the people that we're working with are developing new products and services. So we shouldn't assume that they're just copying whatever's being done out there. I mean, they are innovative in their own right. And oftentimes they're creating products and services which are tailored for communities of need that may not be addressed otherwise. The third thing is in their communities, they're taking up vacant storefronts, right? So that's incredibly important in terms of mobilizing economic activity in corridors which had been disinvested previously. And then the other thing, which is really important, so if we have particular families, and by the way, we've done a great deal of research on this. So it's a 38% incremental increase on average, according to the alumni reported wages annualized from before the program to after. So and so that increment is incredibly important. That's a great. That's particularly important when we're talking about lower income demographics. And so we're talking about folks who are making tough decisions about rent, paying bill, and now all of a sudden, the other thing that I'd mention in terms of macro benefit is returns to the tax base. So we're able to see over time how folks are less reliant on different social services and more independent. And importantly, they're independent in terms of pursuing their own vision, the vision of the business that they themselves wanted to start. We think that's incredibly important in terms of reflecting the dignity that they each have as an individual. But then also, when I think of the macro benefits and some of the discussions we've been having around justice, right? We've been having a whole series of conversations nationally around what is a just society, right? How do we think about that? And when I think about justice, I'm thinking about, there's a way that we can provide dream, and in doing so, we're providing them the opportunity to address these sort of inequalities that we've been talking about, because the reality is that when people become owners, they become more independent, they're more empowered, and that's the sort of growth and development that I think we want to see both in Richmond but around the country.
Now, how can we help? What do you need more of?
Yeah, well, thank you. So, Lee, so there's a few different ways, right? So the first thing is that we are currently recruiting for interns. So we're in the process of taking what we've been doing. We've been doing more and more of this online. And so Open Trellis is the manifestation of that. We have some new software that we're developing. So we're looking for anyone who has an interest in software development. There's an awful lot of ways that people can get involved who are retired, who previously owned a business. The folks that we work with who are mentoring our founders, all themselves have been business owners in the past. So they understand what it's like to make payroll. And then the third area is around donation and giving. So we're a charitable nonprofit. We're always interested in talking with people who would like to support our mission.
And can you give the website for those who want to learn more and get involved?
Sure. They can go to opentrellis.org.
That's OpenTrellis.org. Dale Fickett, thank you so much for sharing your story today. You're doing such important work, and we appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Lee. Great to be with you.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Richmond Business Radio.